This is the I Heart My Life show. Hey, it's Emily Williams here, and today's episode is something a little different and super special. So I'm actually sharing an interview that I did with the incredible Lisa Michaud, who's the host of the Goalden Girls Podcast, and that's G-O-A-L, Goalden Girls. And she interviewed me a while back on the topic of money mindset. And after we were done with the conversation, I told her I need to share this with everyone because number one, she asked the most amazing questions. And number two, it was just in flow. What I was sharing was information I'd never shared before. She just brought out something different in me, a whole nother level. And so I'm really excited to bring this episode to the I Heart My Life show and just share it with our community because I know it's going to support you in going to the next level of financial abundance, in reprogramming your mindset, in removing those money blocks and ways of thinking about money that are currently holding you back. And so I'm so excited to share all this with you if you are looking to create a next level of wealth in your life and potentially in your business. So I hope you love this episode. I know you will. Please share it with anyone who might benefit from it as well. And if you know you want to go even deeper, definitely check out my I Heart Money course. You can use the promo code podcast and you can save 50% on the course and grab it and go through it right away. Just go to iheartmoneycourse.com or you can go to the I Heart My Life site and you'll find it under our shop section. And again, use the promo code podcast to save 50%. We have people who go through this course in just a weekend because it is so bingeable and it's so good that they want to keep going. So definitely check that out if you listen to this episode and you realize, hey, I need some deeper money support and I want to take this to the next level. All right, go ahead and tune in.
Money. Even just saying that word, I've probably triggered someone already. Money is a hot, hot topic. In today's world, money is essential. From paychecks to financial literacy, taxes, investing, and ultimately managing wealth, everyone has not only an opinion, but probably a story, a belief, and feelings about all these elements of money. Now, I'm going to hop on my soapbox for just a minute here. And you may have heard me say this before, but it really drives me bananas that we've been grown up and raised and told to never talk about money, politics, and religion. This drives me bananas because we say this, we say don't talk about these things. And then we look around the world and we wonder why each of these parts of the world have kind of fallen apart. We wonder why our politics are unbelievably divided and that it feels as if we can't find any common ground, which, by the way, I feel like is not true and the common ground does exist. But we also then wonder why there's so much loneliness, why we feel spiritually empty, why there's so much depression and anxiety. And I'm not saying it's all because of a lack of connection to a higher power, but I do believe there's a connection with the fact that we don't talk about religion and spirituality, and then we also feel so lonely and empty. And then the money piece. We wonder why so many people are living paycheck to paycheck and struggling financially, and yet we grew up being told not to talk about money. Now, I'm not a genius, but seriously, I believe that if we flipped the script and started talking about the hard things, the things that we're, quote, not supposed to talk about, which may not even be that hard, but if we got the skills we needed to talk about these important life things, such as religion and politics and money, the things that can really help us progress as individuals and society, I really believe we'd be able to thrive in life so much more. And that's what I'm here to do, to help you thrive and create an incredible life. So to do that, in my small little corner of the internet, we're talking about money, and specifically the money stories and money mindset that hold you back. Most of us have grown up with all kinds of money stories. Here's a little sampling of mine. Money is hard to make. Money doesn't grow on trees. Debt is bad. Pay down your mortgage as soon as possible. Don't talk about money ever. Oh, being rich and having nice things, that's for other people, not for me. All of these things. Now, I gotta say, while my parents were amazing and they truly did the best they could, needless to say, they did not set me up for financial success and positive money mindset. On my path to financial stability and financial freedom, I've had to rewrite a lot of these stories. And today's guest has had to do the same and now helps thousands of other women do this too. So if any of those money stories sound familiar, or maybe you've got your own, keep listening because this is the episode for you. Today's guest, Emily Williams, is a success coach, author, podcast host, and CEO who at one point couldn't even get a job at Starbucks. After experiencing a quarter-life crisis, she moved from Ohio to London where she knew no one, and in 2014 launched her company, I Heart My Life. She made $442 in her first month and then went on to hit six figures in 6 months before her 30th birthday. She then grew her business to seven figures in under 18 months. Today, Emily works with ambitious, heart-centered women all around the world, helping them bust through the obstacles that hold their dreams and goals hostage so they can free themselves to create a life that's better than their dreams through her company's membership, courses, and retreats. She also personally coaches entrepreneurs to help them scale their business and their lives to new heights. Here's the thing. You know deep down you want to be financially successful. You want to have a positive wealth mindset and have a financial plan that works for you. You want to have wealth and success habits that allow you to set and hit your financial targets so that you can gain financial empowerment, financial independence, and freedom on your terms. And you want all that not just for the sake of having money, but so that then you can live the life you truly want to. Here's the truth. Your mindset can play a key role in how you behave with money, how you earn it, how much you earn, how you make it, how you spend it, attract it, invest it, and use it. There's so much fear and negativity around money out there. Fear of what others are going to think if we're wealthy, fear that we'll suddenly turn evil. I mean, isn't money the root of all of it anyways? And concerns that we won't know what to do with it, or that we won't be smart enough or not good enough with money, or that it's too complicated for us to understand. Now, again, I'm not a genius, but do you think that maybe there's a correlation between all this fear, this negativity, and the shame? Oh, the shame of not having money and the shame of having money, so much freaking shame. Do you think there's a correlation between these negative emotions and the fact that so many people struggle with money? Sherlock, I don't think so. And in fact, I argue that there's a direct correlation and connection. So let's change that. In today's episode, you are going to learn how to identify your money stories and your limiting beliefs about money. You're going to understand how to shift those money stories to empower you to create wealth and financial literacy. You're going to hear Emily's story of going from broke and in debt to creating her seven-figure business in 18 months and the mindset shift she had to make in that process. You're going to get tips on how to improve your financial situation through mindset and energy while still being grounded in reality. I mean, hello, if you know me, you know I love the blend of woo and do here on Goalden Girls Podcast. In this episode, you're also going to learn the difference between being prudent and smart with your money versus being cheap. You're going to know how to feel and put the energy of abundance out instead of the lack mentality so you can make intentional and aligned money decisions. You're going to learn how to balance saving, investing, and spending, both energetically and tactically. And you're going to feel more confident in how to deal with what other people may think of you or say about you when you have money, or even if people think that you're now hoity-toity or stuck up. And for the real estate investors, or frankly, anyone that's heard the terms don't go into debt or debt is bad, you're going to hear the nuanced answer of how to know when you should go into debt and how to navigate that. If you want to create financial success in your life and you know a positive wealth mindset is key, then this episode is for you. By the end of it, you're going to be ready to uncover and shift your money stories. You'll believe that money is going to make you more of who you already are. And I bet that's a pretty freaking awesome person. You're going to feel empowered, abundant, and ready to grow your energy, your bank account, and your overall life abundance. Trust me when I say Emily really is the best of the best in the money mindset space. So grab your notebook. You are going to want to listen closely and take inspiration from Emily and the secrets and strategies she shares to drop the panic, the shame, the guilt, and the worry about money. So you can take that energy and use it to create impact, freedom, and the life and success you dream of.
Welcome to the Goalden Girls Podcast, where we believe you can have it all. I'm your host, Lisa Michaud, and I'm spilling tangible tips, goal-getting strategies, and real-life stories to inspire you to tackle your biggest dreams. You're a woman who knows you're made for more. Get ready to leave the excuses and self-doubt behind by being vulnerable, sharing your truth, and having honest conversations so you can succeed on your terms. Together, we'll set goals you'll actually achieve by staying motivated, having fun, and building a community of women empowering women. It's time to tap into your best self, get confident, and truly have it all. Goalden Girl, let's dive in.
Hello, Goalden Girls Podcast listeners. Lisa Michaud here. I am so pumped to be here today with Emily Williams, success coach, podcast host, author, founder of I Heart My Life, and champion of Your Big Dreams. Emily, welcome to the Goalden Girls Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super pumped. I feel like this is long overdue because we've been in each other's worlds for a long time and years now. So I'm excited to be here.
I feel the same way. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that I've had you on my list of people to have on the show since I first started almost 4 years ago. And so it just feels like such a beautiful, both like completion and also like, I feel like we're just getting started.
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I've known you for probably about 6 or 7 years now. I know you're an incredible coach and I've worked with a lot over the years. And I have to say, like, you stand out as someone who is so powerful and one of the most direct that I've ever had the pleasure of working with. But for people who don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit more about you, where you came from, and a little bit about your journey with money specifically?
Yeah, totally. And before I get into that, I want to say, like, that was not meant to be like an entitled comment of, yeah, you should have had me on the show 4 years ago. I just mean that I've been a fan of you and your work and your message and your energy. And so it's an honor to be here. And we've had so many conversations over the years. And so I'm excited to be bringing this conversation live to your audience because I know it's going to be a good one.
Thank you. And I did not take that as entitled at all. I meant that as like, I wanted you to do this with you for a long time. And that's how long I have also loved and soaked up all of your energy and your wisdom. And so it's so cool to be here with you.
Yes. Yeah. So it is a long and winding story. So I'll share the short version. And I think that this really pertains to following your heart. It definitely pertains to money and getting over fears and blocks. It pertains to some of the other things we're going to be talking about, like quitting and following your dreams, all of it. And so for me, I started off down a very normal path of applying to graduate schools around the country in the United States, thinking I was going to go and get a master's in counseling psychology. And I was literally driving there. My mom was driving. I was in the passenger seat. And I had this feeling like this is not the right next step for me. And so in that moment, I started to cry. And my mom asked me what was wrong. And all I could tell her was this doesn't feel right, because there was no rational reason for me feeling the way I was feeling. Yes, I was going to be spending a lot of money on my education. Yes, I would be going away from home. But I had spent months, if not years, thinking about that step, flying around the country, applying to 12 different schools. But in that moment, something was off. And so she was super understanding. We ended up turning the car around and going back to Ohio, where I'm from. And I entered into a full-blown quarter-life crisis where I had literally no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And so moved back in with my parents, ended up working at random places like Starbucks. I worked at a hospital for a while and was just trying to find any little nugget of clarity that I possibly could. And I'm sure many people have experienced this. For me, I called it my quarter-life crisis. And it was that feeling of, I know I'm meant for something big. I know I can do something in the world. I know that I'm capable, but I have absolutely no idea what that is. And so for me, it was a good year and a half of feeling stuck and feeling resentful, feeling like I'd made the wrong decision, and yet knowing I didn't actually want to go to grad school. So there were so many question marks that I was sitting with during that time. And I started to read different personal development books, and I started to think about things like The Secret and the Law of Attraction for the first time. And one of the things that I learned was that we need to focus on what we do know now, even if it's something really, really small. And that can get us moving in the right direction. So around that same time, I had actually gone to the UK to visit a friend who was studying abroad there, and my sister was also studying abroad in Italy. And the moment I stepped out of Victoria Station in London, England, I had this feeling like I need to move here. And that was completely ridiculous. No one in my family had ever left Ohio, and I had no idea why I felt that way. But I kept coming back to that. After I got home from that trip, I kept coming back to that because that was really the only piece of clarity I had. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to hold on to this one because it's like my lifeline. There's nothing else that I know in this moment. So I did everything I possibly could to move to England. And the only way I could go there would be on a student visa or having a spouse visa. But I hadn't yet met my English gentleman, which I do meet him later on. And so I applied to get a master's in nonfiction writing because another thing I knew was at some point I wanted to write a book. And so I put those two things together and moved in August 2010. Literally had no money, had to wait for my student loan to come in. My parents kind of were like, we paid for your undergraduate education. Now you're on your own. And so I applied for a government loan to be able to go. And the only thing I didn't realize, which is part of the money conversation, is that when I got to the UK, basically my loan would be split in half because the exchange rate was so horrible during that time. And so I lived in a hotel for a little bit, then eventually started to run out of money and had to move into a hostel. And finally found an apartment that was cheap enough, but also in like one of the most luxurious neighborhoods in London, because that's totally me. It was this tiny studio apartment. I was too cheap to pay for a taxi, so I literally moved 4 suitcases across town on my own, up like 5 flights of stairs into this tiny studio apartment, and kicked off my life in the UK. And I thought, everything was going to be perfect. Things were going to fall into place. But it was another year or so of just complete, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any friends. I was working as a nanny. Eventually, I met my husband online about a year later. And so that opened up a lot of doors for me in terms of relationships and friendships. But it wasn't until 2013 that I discovered the world of coaching and came up with the brand I Heart My Life, because for so many years, literally for 5 years, I did not love my life, especially when it came to the professional side. And so once I finally found coaching in the online space, something clicked for me. And I was like, I want to help other women do the same. I want to help them get clarity, help them find something that lights them up, help them achieve that thing that they know they're meant to do, because it took me so long to find it. So that's that part of the journey in a nutshell.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I love that part of you, Emily, that you're so clear and so good at listening to your intuition and at following those threads that life gives you. And I think, I often say, like, if you're tuned into what you want, that's how you prevent quarter life crises or midlife crises. If you're constantly evolving and tuning in. And we're going to talk about that more on the next episode, because I want to know, I'm recording. I have so many things to talk about with Emily. We're recording too. So I want to know how you've gotten so clear on that. But on this one, let's talk about money. So here you are, you're in the UK. I love that you even just said there, the dichotomy of I'm in the most luxurious neighborhood, even if I have to be in a tiny little apartment. And also I'm too cheap to take a cab. Like, isn't that practical? What were some of the money stories that you grew up with that you have since grown out of? I don't want to say grown out of. You've worked out of those.
Yeah, you're right. I have worked out of them. But yeah, when I was living there, gosh, I've always had nice taste. I guess you could say expensive taste. And I remember growing up with there were 2 things. My grandma had this little pillow and it said, "He makes it, I spend it." And she used to go shopping and then she would hide the boxes so my grandpa wouldn't see what she'd spent. And I saw something similar with my mom. My dad was an entrepreneur. He was really successful. There were definitely ups and downs, but my mom wouldn't always tell him when she bought myself and my sister new clothes or something like that. And so there was like this element of like, if you spend too much, don't tell anyone. You don't want to be too flashy. Later on, I even bought my mom a Louis Vuitton purse and she wouldn't take it to church. Right? If that tells you anything. And I think she's doing better now. I saw her the other day with it. But there's this like element of you don't want to be too flashy. You don't want to rub it in people's faces. But I always loved nice things. And I made myself wrong for that for many years. And I thought to myself, at many points during my quarter life crisis, this would be so much easier if I was willing to just go like get the Jetta and live in the tiny condo in my hometown and be happy being a teacher or something. And there's nothing wrong with that. But oftentimes my ambition were the source of my pain, or at least I thought. And so I wanted to have more money. I wanted to be wealthy, but then there was like, am I deserving of it? Can it actually happen? Does this make me wrong? Like all these negative thoughts around it. And so those are two conflicting energies, like that desire, but then that shame. And I didn't know that at the time. And so there was this like cycle of me wanting a lot of money and then spending a lot of money because I want to live in the nicest neighborhood, but I don't necessarily have it and I don't know how I'm going to make it back. And so it was like this constant cycle of debt and wanting more. And when I started my business, I was actually like deeply in student debt. I had lots of credit card debt. And so there was just this like always I want more sort of a feeling, and that's my like standard, but I don't yet have it. And so I definitely had to work through that. And then when I started my business, had to work through even talking about money. And I know we're going to go deeper with this, but talking about money, understanding how to actually sell, understanding that there were even limiting beliefs that I was dealing with that were stopping me from being successful, because I didn't know that we had a money mindset. I didn't know that that was a thing when I got into my business. So yeah, there were tons of pieces that I had to unravel and things I needed to flip.
Oh my gosh, there is like a whole podcast just in that one question. Okay, let's start teasing it apart, because I think this is a question that a lot of people do have. And one of the things I'll say about you Emily, that I really love, and I also respect how hard it must be. You do show the luxury. You show what you spend, and you've done masterminds in Bora Bora. You have beautiful handbags. You have a beautiful home that you just built in Austin, Texas. You do live a luxury, beautiful life. And I do think a lot of people struggle with that perception of what people are going to think of you if you have money. And, you don't just kind of share it with a few people. You share it online, and you stand proud. So how did you get over some of those pieces? And I know this is something that's really common in our community. Everyone wants to have money. Let's just put that out there. Everybody, we need money. We want it. But that perception, you don't want people to think oh, what if when you get money, you're stuck up, or you're hoity-toity, or look at her flashing, or she's showing off, or all of these pieces. So how did you navigate going from literally, grandma hiding the boxes to you putting it for tens of thousands of people on social media and on your email list and on podcasts saying, here's what I've got, and working through that?
So one of my biggest blessings was finding people who had come before me, especially in the coaching space, who lived the life that I wanted to live. There's this beautiful teacher. She runs a company called To Be Magnetic. Her name is Lacey Phillips, and she calls these people your expanders. And so these coaches were expanders for me because they were living the life that I wanted. They had beautiful clothes. They were traveling around the world. They were working with incredible clients. They were making an impact, and they had a lot of money, and they weren't afraid to talk about it. And when I kicked off my business in 2013, it was not normal for women entrepreneurs to be talking about how much money they were making. And so as I started to do my own work and build my business and see financial success, I started to see that just like those other women before me who expanded my perception of what was possible, it was actually my duty to do the same for everyone else. And so I knew in doing my own internal work that, and also just marketing work, that I wasn't speaking to everyone, but the people who were going to resonate with me, they would get it and they would be excited by it. And it would probably maybe cause a little bit of jealousy or a little bit of envy. But that was a good thing because it was going to show them what they actually wanted. And so I really shifted the focus off myself and all those fears and realized that in order to be fully in service to the people I wanted to work with and to my mission, I had to be honest and vulnerable. And that meant with all facets of me. And starting to talk about money was a game changer because people could see what was possible. And although there were all these other teachers who had come before me, a lot of people said they wanted to work with me in my coaching practice because I was only a few steps ahead, but I was doing really big things. And they were like, oh, great. Okay, so the money I want to make is not 10 years from now or 20 years from now. It could be 10 weeks from now or even 10 days. Right. And so I saw it as it was my duty to share, and that helped me move past my fear.
So powerful. You've definitely been an expander for me as well and continue to be. So thank you for being in service of us. What would you say to the people that don't want to be coaches, don't want to trigger people, and instead more maybe the advice you'd almost give to your mom, the people that still have to go to church or have family and friends or deal with that kind of inner circle that may not be as supportive as we start to build wealth, whether it's through real estate or through a business or other ways?
So I listened to a lot of entrepreneurs, and I was listening to Alex Hormozi the other day, who many people might know. And he shared a quote that said, anyone who said money doesn't buy happiness hasn't given enough away. And I thought that was so, so powerful because in my opinion, in my experience, money makes you more of who you already are. And so you get to decide how you want to spend it. For a lot of people, like the first steps are, getting the things, getting the purses, whatever the stuff is, buying the house, building the house. And then you get to a level where you're like, okay, well, I want to spoil the people in my life, or I want to become a philanthropist, or whatever it is. And so really think about yourself and how money would transform you and your family, not just through the stuff that you could buy, but like what would be the opportunities? How could you change the planet? You know, what does desiring more mean for you as well as the rest of the world? And so I realized that by me showing people what was possible through a handbag or through hosting an event or through giving it away, it was all the same. I was showing people what was possible. And I believe that that desire for more money is just your desire for more life and for you to live your your fullest life. And for me, like that requires things. Like that requires me being able to travel. I love traveling. That requires me living in a beautiful space. I really love, waking up in this house. So like, think about, I know I'm on a tangent now, but think about, what is required for you to live your best life, because that's only going to serve everyone else. And for me, I just know that if someone is jealous or if something sparks some bit of envy in someone, that just means they're having an opportunity to realize what it is that they want. And hopefully they get to the point where they can shift their mindset to know that that's what's happening. And I'm not the only one who can have the bag or the trip or the house. Like it's possible for all of us. And I might just be a representation of that.
So good. So good. Knowing what living your life to your fullest is for you and having money support that vision. That's so good. So there's a lot of different money stories out there. Money is hard to make. Money is the root of all evil. Money is for other people. There's like 1,000 of them that we could unpack. How do people start to unpack their own money stories and shift them to what are empowered money beliefs? And this was actually a community question, which was like, basically, where do I start?
Great. Yeah, that's such a great question. I didn't know I had a money mindset either. So many of us, I went through 4 years of getting a psychology degree and I didn't know I had a money mindset. This is not taught. And so, when I discovered money mindset, it changed everything. And it's basically just the way that you think about money. And most of the time that's from your childhood. It's from what your parents taught you or what society taught you. Yes, you can have experiences directly with money as you get older, and that could also shape your mindset and your belief system and your fears. It's just the way that you think about money. I also like to think about it as your relationship with money. So when we think about money, what comes up for you viscerally? Like, how do you feel in your body? Also, what are the thoughts that come up? Also, do you like looking at your bank account? That was one of the first things that I realized back in the day was I hated looking at my bank account. It was like I didn't want to know, what was going on. And it's like people who want to get healthy, but they don't want, and I'm not saying this is the only way to do it, but they don't want to look at the foods they're eating or look at the amount of calories or read the food label because you have blinders on. So really think about your overall relationship with money, and that's the first place to start. And some of what will come up are those stories like the ones you just mentioned. I had someone on my podcast, Garen Jones, recently, and he was talking about how we often say money doesn't grow on trees. And he's like, but money's made of paper. That literally is a tree. And that blew my mind. I was like, oh my goodness, that is the best thing I've ever heard. And so we think about all these things and we have to ask ourselves, where did this even come from? Is this actually true? Because there are people who have nothing, but there's also people who are making $1 million a year, $1 million a month, $1 million a day. Like, we know that this is humanly possible. And so if it's possible for them, why wouldn't it be possible for you too?
Yes, money does literally grow on trees. It's like everything we've been told growing up is just a lie. Oh my gosh. This is, we're just shattering it all here today. I love that.
Yeah.
So good. So I know obviously there's so many kind of tips and tricks here and pieces, but if you had to bring it down to maybe 2 or 3, takeaways or actions that people could take in terms of improving their financial situation, what would you say? Because I have a feeling some of them are probably going to be mindset. Maybe not. Maybe there are some actual action steps. Like if someone is like, I know that I am made for more. I know that I need a better financial situation. I want a better financial situation to be the best of me. What are the next steps, or what are a couple of your favorite tips that you've seen work?
Yeah. So when I started out, like I said, I was $30,000 in credit card debt and $90,000 in student loan debt. And so when I started my business, I had less than nothing. And yet I knew that there was this thing calling me. And so it really starts with this belief that you're meant for something more. And I think, honestly, most people don't even get to that point. It's just like, oh, I'm just going to settle for this. I should just be grateful for what I have. That crazy pie in the sky dream, it's not going to be possible for me. And so if you're in that place, honestly, the first step is belief. You need to generate belief that what you want, whether it's more money, a better life, the business, whatever the thing is, that's possible for you. And that's where those people, those expanders come into play, because sometimes when we see other people doing it, that shifts our mindset and we see that it's possible for us. So if it's wealth, follow people online who are wealthy. Look at people in your life who have a lot of money. Get your mindset to the place where you believe it's possible for you. That's the first step. Then the next step is to look at, okay, great. And what are the beliefs that could possibly take me backwards? What are the thoughts? What are those thought habits? What are the money mindset? What's the money mindset programming that's running through my mind? Because just like a computer, you need to update that operating system that you are using in this moment. And think to yourself, are these thoughts actually going to get me the result that I'm craving? I suck at making money, does that really equal me being wealthy? Probably not. So we need to shift that. And then, as you said, mindset is important, but I always believe in pairing that with action. And so a lot of people are setting financial goals, but there isn't actually the vehicle, so to speak, to get that goal, to reach that goal. So when I started out, I didn't kid myself and think that I had hundreds of thousands of followers. And so I was going to be able to sell something for $20 and knock it out of the park and reach my financial goals. So I started with higher priced things, and not saying the top tier, but I started higher. I knew that, for example, one-to-one coaching was going to be much more lucrative because I had a smaller list. My business was fairly new. And so that was my vehicle. So really think about the goals that you're setting for yourself. And I'm not saying you're never going to reach the million or 10 or whatever, $1 billion, whatever you want is amazing. But think about the vehicle you currently have, or as to mention Lacey Phillips, again, she calls it the portal. Money has to come through a portal for you to be able to get it. And so is it a business? Is it a job? Is it an investment? Is it rich grandma? What is it? And is it a house? Are you going to sell your house? So there's a million different ways you could make money. Just make sure that that thing actually exists and it's possible in terms of the goals that you're setting. Otherwise, we're setting all these really far off goals, and anyone can do that. I always say it's so easy to set big picture goals, but it's the people who actually reach them are the ones that start a little bit smaller, bring it in and start to take the action towards it versus just having it out there on their vision board.
Oh, so good. I love that. I had this visual of a portal opening up. Yeah. And it's so true, because especially when you talk about money mindsets and you can easily talk about The Secret and the law of attraction and having sticky notes everywhere, I'm wealthy, and doing the mantras and listening to the binaural beats on money mindset. And clearly I've done all of them. But you also need the portal, the vehicle, the way to bring it in and the action. So thank you for grounding it down on that. I think that's such an important point. Now, we work a lot of people for who the portal is real estate investing. And one of the most powerful things about real estate investing is the ability to use leverage. So for example, you could put 5% down, 10% down, 25% down, whatever that number is. And then the other portion of it becomes leverage. And so it comes from a loan, a form of a mortgage. And so you're able to kind of scale up your profits much, much better. Your cash on cash return is much higher than if you were not leveraging. But that also comes with the downside. A lot of us, myself and Troy included, we grew up with parents who told us pay off your mortgage as soon as possible. And I know a lot of people relate to that too. And this whole idea that debt is bad, don't use debt. But I know you actually reframe the word debt. And how do you do that? How do you reframe it? And how do you differentiate between, I guess it would be like good debt and bad debt, and the debt that is powerful in service of your vision or in service of maybe opening that portal or being the portal versus debt that is like my credit card debt when I graduated, which was also a lot of purses and jeans and fancy things.
Yeah, great question. And I will say that I don't believe this is necessarily black and white, because there are different things that help people on their journey. And yeah, I'm going to get to that. So this is not black and white, but I'm going to do my best to describe how I view this. So for me, when it comes to the word debt, as I was doing my money mindset work, I was very ashamed for my debt. And so I had to flip the switch on that, so to speak, and think about it in a different way. And when I looked back, the debt that I had was because I moved countries, I followed my heart, I was chasing my dreams, and I got an education, I got my master's. And so I started to realize I don't need to make myself wrong for this. Like, these are all investments in the life that I want and in big things for myself. And so I changed the word to investments because that felt better physically in my body. And that's what I saw it as. And so I think that's the perfect way to start my answer to this question, because you have to ask yourself, is what I'm going in debt for an investment in my future, an investment that's going to have a return? And so many people, of course, real estate is, that's a great investment most of the time. And, you know, like there's ebbs and flows with everything. There's good and bad investments. I get it. But like, that's the intention behind it, is you're investing in something that's going to yield a return. And when I started my coaching business, my husband, he was at a job, a 9-to-5 job. He'd been there for 12 years and he was making about $35,000 a year. And we put the first program that I was a part of on his credit card, and that was $7,500. So that was a big chunk of money for somebody only making, you know, $35K. And yet he believed in me so much that he was willing to take on that debt. And so that's what you need to ask yourself as well. If you're investing in a coach or a program or something that's going to move the needle for you, or your education, is there going to be a payoff here? And for a lot of people, it brings up a lot of fear, not necessarily because of the money, but because they don't trust themselves enough to be able to follow through and actually do the thing. And as I was jumping into this world of entrepreneurship, you know, I thought to myself, that is a big chunk of money, but worst case scenario, if this doesn't work out, I'll go and get a job and we'll pay it off. So I didn't let that hold me back. I saw a bigger vision, and I saw that if I invest $7,500 now, imagine what I'm going to be capable of. Because I had coaches, they were showing me they were making $1 million a year. They were making, you know, $30K a day on launches, whatever the amount was. I had a coach tell me, she said, you know, you're making like 25 grand a year in your job. Did you know you could make 25 grand a month? And I was like, no, I did not. Did you know you could make it in a day? And so at first it sounded crazy when she said it, but I chose to believe her. And I was like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. If I invest $7,500 now, I'm going to get a lot more in return much faster than if I tried to do this on my own. So just think about, like, what is the result of the thing you're going in debt for? And honestly, I don't think I'd be here today if it hadn't been for American Express. Like, I'm super grateful for that. And for my husband, obviously, for lending me his credit card. And so I know there's a lot of teachers out there that say don't go in debt. And I'm not saying I'm not saying be in debt for the rest of your life, but I am saying, like, choose the moments when it's actually going to work in your favor, because most of us don't have the money under the mattress to start the dream.
Oh, most of us don't have the money under the mattress to start the dream. So good. So good. And I love how you reframe that as you don't have to wait to collect it all to go follow your dream. Again, great conversation. It's nuanced, but you know, I think that's a message that a lot of people do need to hear, at least the other side of it. So thank you so much for sharing that. And you've helped me reframe that. I'm like, I don't know that I can necessarily call my jeans and my purses an investment in the sense of like it helped me get to my dream life. But I will say I learned so many lessons in that process. And as you were sharing, I was like, I could feel myself having different appreciation for that. And now I'm so much better with money because I went through that. So I guess it was an investment in a way. I invested in my own learning and journey. So thank you for that reframe. I love it.
Yeah. Money is always your coach.
Okay. Here is an Emilyism. You've said this. I love this. For those that are like, what do you mean money is my coach? Tell them, take us to church here, Emily. Tell us why money is our coach.
Well, exactly what you just said. So you have some shame that you're carrying from the spending that you, or the debt that you accrued in college. And so shame is a really low vibration in terms of energetics. And so anytime we're carrying shame of any sort, it's not magnetic energy in the way that we want to be magnetic. And so money shows us the work that we get to do on ourselves to transform and to go to a higher level vibrationally, mindset wise, all the things, and be even more attractive to more money. Because think about it. If you had all this shame and low level energy around the money you spent previously, why would money want to actually come to you? Because in reality, you're thinking, oh, I'm bad with money. I did something wrong. And that's not an attractive energy. And it might sound too woo-woo for people, but think about it. If you were to go on a date with somebody and you showed up like feeling tons of shame for previous relationships, maybe you thought you weren't good enough, you weren't good in relationships, that would not be an attractive energy. People would be able to sense that, or maybe you would be in a bad mood, and then the date probably wouldn't go as well. And so I always like to think as, money is our coach, and think about like, what is your relationship with money in the moment? What is money teaching you in this moment? Sometimes spending money, and I'm not saying go and spend $10,000, but sometimes spending money can be a teacher. When I first started this journey, like I was so nervous about spending anything, and that was like draining energy left and right. I also had this like belief that I wasn't worthy of certain things. So I started spending money just a little bit here and there, like buying myself flowers once a month, getting a manicure once a month. I took myself to the gym membership. I got the gym membership, and things started to shift. And so just think about your current relationship with money and what is it inviting you to work on, to see, to transform, to be, to show up as, and then take that action.
Okay, I feel like I could literally talk to you all day. I'm like, as you're talking, there's so many other great Emily-isms coming up in my mind, and I'm gonna add them in the outro. That way, I don't keep you here all day. Okay. But I'm gonna share a couple other places where I think you really helped me transform this. That might be hopefully helpful to people listening.
Yeah. Amazing.
Okay, one of the questions that comes up, and we sort of touched on it. The thread has been there throughout this. What is the difference between being frugal? That's the word that this community member shared, but I think it's like being prudent or being smart with your money or intentional with your money versus being cheap. Where's that difference?
Yeah, so you have to ask yourself, what is the ROI of the thing that I'm buying? And also, why am I buying it? So I'll give you an example. When I was first doing this work, like I said, there were some small things that I refused to spend money on. So taking the taxi, I would try and walk everywhere. I would try and save money. I wouldn't tip anyone. And that, in my opinion, is cheap because I made life a lot harder than it needed to be. And I also was walking around with the mindset that I don't have enough, so I can't give anything away. And when you're constantly going around with that mindset, you're reinforcing it. And then the universe is like, okay, yeah, you don't have enough. And so I'm not going to give you enough because you aren't enough. And again, I know not everyone is like into the spiritual universe stuff, but think about how it makes you feel to not be generous or to not even give to yourself, to not provide for your basic needs, to not, for example, buy the organic food at Whole Foods when you know that it's actually going to serve you better. It's going to give you more energy. It's going to mean that you actually make more money in your business or in your work. It's going to mean that your family's healthier. It's going to save you money on healthcare in the long run. So think about the ROI of spending or not spending. And I think that's a really great way and sort of a barometer to know when am I being frugal and when am I actually being prudent. And you can also think about this as like what would it look like for me to respect money? Because I'm not saying just like throw money, all over the place and spend aimlessly, because oftentimes that's also a Band-Aid for something else going on beneath the surface. So be respectful and conscious of what you're spending, but think like, what is actually going to get me the result that I want, this expenditure or not? And especially when it comes to business, especially when it comes to expanding your life, sometimes spending money is the way to do that. For example, working with somebody, getting in a course, being an investor in something. And it can feel scary at first. It can feel like it's just not the norm for you. But if it's going to expand you in some ways, then it can still be considered prudent, even if you're spending a lot of money.
Two things came up when you were sharing this. Number one, I always find it so interesting how people sometimes are really turned off by spirituality or woo woo or think energy is not real, but put them in like a hockey arena and on a home game, and everybody feels the energy in a hockey arena or at a concert, right? And the statistics are there to prove that home teams typically do better, right? But then it's like, as soon as people walk out of the arena or walk out of the stadium, it's like, oh no, energy is just a woo-woo thing. It's like, well, half an hour ago, we all felt it. We all believed it. The stats are there, but I don't know what happens. And so I just want to share that because I think it's so interesting how we can all understand the energy of an arena in those experiences, but then somehow we walk out and we forget that, but the energy still exists. There's nothing actually that different besides our belief in it or not. And the second thing I wanted to say, because I think we all probably know some people that are cheap and don't tip and happen to be rich. And so, it's not to say that just because you tip it, you will get rich. But I often think about it too, for that person that does have wealth, even if you're sitting on $5 million, $50 million, $50 billion. If you still feel cheap and you still feel scared to spend money and you can't give it away, I don't think that's the position that any of us want to be in. I think most of us want to have money because we actually want to feel safe and comfortable and abundant and generous and like we're able to help out and that we're able to support causes we care about and nourish ourselves and love on the people around us. And so I think that's a really important thing to just remind everybody of that, what the heck is the point of having a whole ton of money if when you have it, you can't feel the way you want to feel with your money?
Totally. I know. I've heard, it's so interesting because I've heard so many people say who have millions upon millions of dollars, that they're scared of losing it or, they don't feel wealthy. And I think that's so interesting to me. And it's also sad because I don't want to get to that place. And, of course, I've had ups and downs in businesses. There's always going to be moments where there are challenges and there's always going to be moments where things are amazing. And so you have to find a level of happiness with or without money. That's one thing that I want to say. But of course, life is going to be easier and you're going to feel that sense of freedom and you're going to be able to be more generous when you do have it. But if you're in that place where being frugal and having that negative mindset with money is leading to, lack of health or unhappiness or whatever, this is your opportunity to start to shift that. And again, like I said, this is not black and white. I'm not telling you how to spend your money, but tune in to how money actually makes you feel. And that will give you more of a sense of the work that you need to do to really have true freedom.
Oh, such good wisdom here. Okay. I'm going to ask you 1.5 more questions before we wrap this one up. Okay. How can I make this happen? Okay. I might have to ask you, maybe we do sort of quicker questions. So how do you put out that energy of abundance versus lack while also making smart and aligned decisions? Do you have any last kind of words of wisdom around that? Maybe actions people might take or how to stay in that energy of abundance versus lack?
So, and again, this is what I've learned over the years and plug in your own examples. But for me, in those moments where I feel like I don't have enough in terms of money or even something else, but we'll use money for now. I think to myself, okay, well, where am I abundant in other areas? And there was a period of time where every area of my life was completely abundant, but I didn't have the money that I wanted in the bank. And so it's really interesting that we apply the word abundant most of the time to wealth, but we could look at every single other area in our life and we're like, oh, wait, my family life is abundant. I have a beautiful home. I have amazing friends. I'm healthy. And so really get into that energy. And I like to play the game with myself and think if I had $50 million in the bank right now, how would I be feeling? And that automatically shifts me because I realize, oh, wait, I'm actually really excited about this chapter. Or I'm really excited about where I live. Or I'm really excited about my family life. That feels amazing. And it's just this this annoying lack mindset and this feeling of not enough around money that is keeping me from feeling the full energy of my life right now and the true energy of it. And so really ask yourself, is it true that I'm not abundant? Because wait, every other area is. And so that means I can also transform the money side of it.
I felt that shift in me when you shared those words. And I feel like everybody listening, that is so So good. What a great way to look at what you do have. And I love how you said, like, look at the other areas of abundance. And then also imagine you have 50 million in the bank or whatever that number is. And like, how would you feel? And what's important? I mean, those are just such great ways to stay in that energy. Okay.
It's also a great way to make clear decisions based on desire, because we often make decisions based on fear, and then we wonder why we don't have the life that we want. And so ask yourself, if the money was in the bank, what would my decision be? If I was overflowing with wealth, what would my decision be? And that can help you get to the root of your truth and start to make decisions based on desire, not fear.
Oh my gosh. So many. I should have told everyone at the beginning, grab a notebook. This is so good. Okay. Here's the last like half question or maybe full question. So is your advice different for the person who's maybe where you were, let's say when you first moved to London in that tiny apartment, not knowing where to get it, wanting money, being in debt, but not having that money, versus where you are now, high income, lots of abundance in many areas, and also abundance in wealth and wanting to go to the next level. Is your advice any different for each of those women or each of those versions of yourself, or is it the same?
When it comes to being clear on what it is that you want, it's the same. Because I think we always have to go back and rewrite our desires, get clear on what we want for our lives, reevaluate. And when I first started doing this work, I had this long list of all the things that I wanted to be able to purchase personally. Yeah, my desire list. And so you start to tick things off. And sometimes we don't actually come back and rewrite the list or revisit it and show ourselves how far we've come. So I recommend always rewriting that list and reevaluating. Like, you could do it quarterly, at least do it yearly, so you are clear on what those next steps actually are. And honestly, I don't think it's that different. I think that you always have money blocks that come up as you go to the next level. Sometimes when I talk to people about creating a lot of money, the first thing that comes up for them is, well, I wouldn't know how to manage it. Or if I make more money, then I'm going to have an even busier schedule and I'm going to have all these team members to manage, and all these, negative thoughts come up. And so, like they say, new level, new devil. I don't think that's the best phrase in the world, but you know what we're talking about. There's always something to be evaluated. And so just keep up with your mental practice when it comes to money, because as you go to the next level, you'll uncover new money blocks and beliefs. And also stay in relationship with people who continue to expand you. Sometimes people stay in the same sort of friend group or community that they started in, but look for the people who are continuously raising the bar, who are ahead of you, regardless of where you're at, because they will be those expanders for you and show you what's possible and help you continue to raise the bar.
So let money continue to be your coach no matter what level you're at.
Totally.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So good. I'm going to go back and rewrite my desires too, because I love that you did that exercise. And every time you kind of go back and reflect on it every couple of years, I always find it inspiring seeing what you've achieved too, and how far you've come. And so what a great reminder for all of us to do the same too. All right.
And sometimes you don't even want the same things. Like, I know for me on there, I think I had like apartment in Italy. And I don't think I actually want an apartment in Italy anymore now that I think about it. But, London would be amazing. There's other places. And so don't be scared to also cross things off if they're no longer aligned, even if you didn't achieve it, because that's really powerful too.
Ooh, what a great segue to what we're going to talk about next, which is going to be the quitting. I love it. Or maybe it's come before this. I don't know where it's in the order, but check the show notes. I'll make sure all of Emily's episodes are all in there for you guys to listen to. Okay, so now the Goalden Girls Podcast rapid fire questions. So quick answers here. What is a goal you're working on right now?
Clarity.
What's a question I should have asked you, but I didn't?
Honestly, you were the most prepared of any interview I've ever had, so nothing.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. What is the best lesson you've learned in the last year?
Oh my gosh. I just became a mom. So many. Just enjoy every moment.
Beautiful. This is actually a question I ask a lot of guests, but I was like, I have to ask Emily this. Okay. What's the best money you've ever spent?
Travel, and I can't just choose one trip. Like, there's been so many. Definitely travel and seeing the world.
Okay, where can people find you and reach out to learn more?
Oh, I was like literally thinking about that. Like, this is going to be a hard question. They can find me at iheartmylife.com or emilywilliams.com, or on Instagram. My handle is Emily Williams, or there's an iHeartMyLife handle.
Okay. And you have an amazing success bundle as well. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So go to iheartmylife.com/success. And we've created this just group of different trainings, master classes, PDFs, all on creating more success. There's even a money mindset masterclass in there, completely complimentary, valued at nearly $2,000. So you can go ahead and sign up and get that completely for free.
Okay, so make sure you all go and do that because Emily's stuff is gold. I have been so grateful to get to work with Emily for the last several years, and everything she puts out is just such a high quality, and I'm sure you've heard that in this episode. Emily, thank you so much for being here, for challenging us all on all of our money mindsets, for giving us some amazing Emily-isms, and for also inspiring us and showing us what's possible and going first.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
Oh my gosh. So good, right? I absolutely love Emily, and she is really one of my favorite people in the money mindset space, and it was such an honor and pleasure to get to interview her. A couple of things I want to share. I want to share with you a few of the things that stood out to me today, and also share a couple of the Emily-isms and other mindset shifts she's helped me make with money that might also be helpful for you. So some of the things that stood out to me today, number one, Emily's list of desires. And, she created that, I think, around 10 years ago. And it's something that you can do too. What are all the things that you want and desire? And I think for me, it's really time for me to revisit this. She's so right, because things change, the things that you desire change, and also our accomplishments. We make them and we don't always celebrate them. So I think there's things that I have accomplished, like getting to pre-made meals, which is a step to having a private chef, that I haven't really celebrated. So I'm definitely going to be doing this. I'm going to look back. I feel like somewhere along the way, I probably created a bit of a draft, a bit of a list of things, and I'm going to create another one this summer of what are my desires, because what a great way to allow ourselves to truly dream big, and B, celebrate the things that we create along the way, because guaranteed, I know I've accomplished things, and I know you have too, that you're probably not celebrating either. So maybe you can join me in on this, and if you end up doing it, send me a DM. I'd love to know. I also really personally appreciated how Emily helped me reframe the guilt that I had around the debt that I accumulated. She shares so much compassion when she talks about money, and I really believe the compassion she holds has so much in it for us. And I hope that as you're listening, no matter what financial situation you're in, that you can hold some compassion for yourself too. And from that place, then you can claim the financial desires that you want and create from that place of compassion, as opposed to always from the guilt and the shame. So as I said, I've worked with Emily a lot over the years, and I want to share a couple of the other shifts that she has given me that might also be in service to you. So, she talked about money as your coach, and that really, really is one that I have taken many times. I'm going to tell you one of the biggest insights I've gotten from Emily is the idea that to even figure out what things cost. So often we say, oh, this thing is too expensive, or I can never afford that. And we don't even actually figure out what that costs. We don't even let ourselves get in the room. And I find that always so interesting, because let's make the argument for a minute here that money is just purely dollars and cents. Well, then all you would need is to figure out what the dollars is and make a plan to get there. But so many of us stop us. And this is why I believe mindset is so, so, so important, because we stop ourselves from even allowing ourselves the potential of that. So let me give you an example of this. I want a private chef. Actually, that desire may change. We'll see what my desire list comes up. But here's the thing. I know what I don't want. I don't want to be doing all the cooking, the grocery shopping, the cleaning, the meal planning, all of that stuff in our house. It's a big piece of work, and I would love to have someone be able to do a healthy, nourishing job of that for all of us. And I feel like I should probably look into this. In my head, I always thought that a private chef was like $70,000, $80,000 a year, and that we were still several years away from that. And I'd heard about pre-made meals, and I was always like, oh, those are just too expensive. But I never actually looked and see what it would cost. So Emily challenged me on this a few years ago, and this whole idea of actually figuring it out. And when I looked into it, it was only, I think the number was maybe $150 a week or something like that. Not to say that it was, completely easy, but we were able to fairly simply look at our budget, reallocate a few things, and let's be honest, one less Costco run a month, and we're factored it in. And it was amazing how I hadn't even let myself look into this. And now it's been about 3 years where I've been getting pre-made meals, and it's amazing how once I actually did the research, figured out what it cost, and looked at my budget, it was easy to fit it in and make that happen. But so often we stop ourselves before we even get to that point. I've heard Emily say that, she was outside a luxury store the other day, and she overheard a couple women, and one asked her friend, do you want to go into the store? And her friend's like, no, I can't even go in there. I can't even afford anything. And it's just so wild to me how often we stop ourselves from even allowing or even looking. Like, what's the harm in looking? What's the harm in knowing what that's going to cost? So that would be my invitation to you, and a little tidbit that I want to share, that if you have a desire, figure out how much it costs. That beautiful resort that you see on Instagram, find out how much it costs, right? If there's a car that you really love, get the actual cost of it. What would that look like? If there's someone you want to hire in your business, what would that look like? If there's a mastermind you want to be a part of, find out what the cost is. Get yourself in the arena and give yourself permission to imagine and to dream about that. And also to plan and to figure out how you can make that happen. But if you're always cutting yourself out before the dream, if you're always cutting yourself out of the room, you're never going to get there, ever, 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 ever. One of the other powerful shifts that Emily's helped me make is the idea, and I think a lot of people are guilty of this, that we assume that everyone else has the same financial situation or the same money story as us. And often that money story is that other people don't have money. One of Emily's reframes is to assume that every client, and this is great for entrepreneurs, but also it could be great, if you're in sales, assume that every person that you're on the phone with has a rich grandma ready to give them money. And this makes it so that you don't get caught up in your own money story, so that you don't project your lack or your scarcity onto other people. And the rich grandma story always helps me. And I seriously have had clients who actually do have rich grandmas, and it's pretty amazing. And I may have stopped that client from investing if I'd given them my own stories or assumed I know it's a lot, but or maybe you can pay in installments, or maybe you can do this later on down the road. And instead, it's so much more powerful when I can assume that everyone that I talk to, and again, it's not about the rich grandma. It's not assuming that everyone has the privilege or those means, but it's assuming that everyone can find a way, and that everyone is naturally resourceful, creative, and whole, and in their own way can find a way to make the money that they want. So this actually kind of ties back to the first one as well that I talked about. It all goes together. Not assuming for myself that I can't afford something, and also not assuming that other people can't, and instead giving ourselves permission to find out what things are, and living in the potentiality, and knowing that we're resourceful enough to make it happen, and also knowing that other people are resourceful enough to make it happen too. I think, those are two separate things, but I think they really tie together nicely, both in the way that we approach things and the way that we allow clients or customers or other people to come to us too. It's just assuming that we're all naturally creative, resourceful, and whole, and then we can figure this out. All right, here's another one too. The Aura Ring. I haven't actually fully done an episode on this. I might one day. But it is a sleep tracking device. I've wanted one for literally years. My sleep has been off, and I was like, I need to get this. And I was really hesitant to buy one. And then at the beginning of this year, 2023, Emily challenged me. She was like, okay, how much is it? And I was like, I know this. I'm on the website all the time. I at least got myself this far. It was $500. And she asked me, okay, when's the last time you spent $500? And I was like, just the other day I bought some vitamins, or it was a week ago at Costco or whatever that was. She's like, how often do you spend $500 and not even think about it? And that was such a good thing. And, Emily challenged me, and she didn't challenge me to buy it right away and say, just open up the website and do it. It's because it's not always about that. It's not always about literally getting your credit card out and doing it right away. But she invited me to think about it and look at it and reevaluate things in my budget, especially knowing that, hey, I spend that amount of money often. So could I redirect it? So I took a few weeks, I redirected a few things in my budget, and I bought it, and I love it. And I'm so happy about this Aura Ring. And it's so interesting how that dollar amount, I think, and we probably all have these for certain things, it can block us. And so there really is something powerful about, looking, first of all, knowing how much something costs, and then just asking yourself, how often are you spending that in other ways? And is there a way to make that happen? Now, there's something else I've also been holding back on buying, and I almost don't even want to tell you because it's kind of funny and silly and maybe a little bit embarrassing, but I'm going to share it because it's such a block, and that block is cleaning supplies. Look, I want the whole 9 Yards, the whole collection of the mint cleaning products. They are local from Vancouver Island. I absolutely love all the social media posts that these ladies do. I've heard the products are amazing and they're natural, they're clean ingredients, and I'm really passionate about detoxing my house. But to buy like the full meal deal package is like, I think it's like $200. It's not more than $300. I know that for sure. And it just feels like a lot to spend on cleaning supplies. And here, I just told you, I spend $500 like quite often in that amount, $300. It's not even about the amount, but there's definitely like a mindset block. So I know I'm going to love them. It just feels like there's that block. And I know we all have these. So after the summer, we've got some travel coming up. I'm going to relook at our budget again. I'm going to follow Emily's advice here. I'm going to follow my own advice here. Same thing I did with the Oura Ring. I'm going to make space for that investment. And I guess that's my invitation to you too, is to look where in your life is there an investment you've been wanting to make. Maybe it's an Oura Ring. Maybe it's cleaning supplies. Maybe it's a vacation. Maybe it's pre-made meals. Maybe it's a coaching program. Maybe it's a book. Like it could be big. It could be small. And look at your budget again and figure out how you can make space for it. All right, couple last little things. Emily, she calls out how often we call things expensive, because often when we make it expensive, and often we call it too expensive. So she instead calls it luxurious or luxury or premium or an investment. We've also been talking with my friends a lot about the word elevated. So maybe it's also elevated. And that's been really helpful for me. Instead of thinking of something as being too expensive for me, I think of it as premium or elevated or luxury. And then from that place, I can decide whether it's in alignment for me to spend that money or not. Last thing I want to say, Emily said it, but I really want to bring this home. Money makes you more of who you already are. And so I want you to really think about the impact that you could have if you had more money. I personally believe that the world would be a better place if more good people had money, but I want you to feel it too. What would having money transform in your life? What causes would you support? What more sustainable purchases or decisions would you make? Who in your life would you treat or spoil? Is there a family or friends or a neighbor that you see struggling, or a teacher, or like what would that look like? Who would you want to treat and spoil? Where would you give larger tips? Who would you donate to? What causes would you donate to? What would you love to create? I know, because I talk a lot and I have a lot of conversations with a lot of cool people. You've got some answers to this, and you've got some beautiful, amazing answers to this. And like, honestly, that's what motivates me to bust through all the money mindset stories and all the flack that I sometimes get for talking about money, whether it's in messages or it's around in the periphery of it. It's because I truly believe that you're listening to this and you have great ways that you could spend your money. And I want you and I want everyone listening to have more money so that you can do more good in the world. Imagine the purchasing power that we could change for sustainable practices, and who would be spoiled that really deserves that, and what causes could be progressed, and what you could create. Like, my gosh, I know there's amazing things, whether it's charities or nonprofits or just weekend experiences that would change our world. And I really believe that if we worry less about money and our bodies, and like, frankly, a whole lot of other things. But in this case, if we're worrying a whole lot less about money, we would have the freedom and the power to create a way better world for everyone. So friend, whether you are living paycheck to paycheck, or if you have a few million or many million to your name, my biggest hope for you is this: that you can take steps to feel abundant and to live aligned, that you can feel confident when it comes to money, that you can feel confident in yourself. And even if there's things to learn when it comes to money, whether it's tax or planning or estates or strategy or investing, to know that you can handle it, and that you realize that your mindset plays a huge role in this. In the wise words of Danielle Laporte, she says, ecstasy is your birthright. And I believe abundance is your birthright. We truly are meant to have money and to have it flow. And if we can have more money into the hands of good people, we can amplify the good and the light in the world for everyone. I hope in this episode and through Emily's amazing insights that we've planted a few more seeds for you. Seeds that you're going to be able to take to go make more money, to do more good, and to create an incredible life and experience for you and those around you. I hope this episode plants the seeds for all of us to get more money into the hands of good people like you. and that collectively we can amplify this good and all the good things all around us. So thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting my vision of more good in this world. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in this next episode of Goalden Girls Podcast. If you know someone who also could do more good in the world by listening to this episode, please take a moment and share it with them. It means the world to me, and you never know what kind of impact it could have in the world. I love you. Have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you so much for listening. If something spoke to you, send me a message by sharing this episode and tagging me on social media. If you know someone who would love to hear this episode, please share it with them too. Because I love surprises, make sure you subscribe to the Goalden Girls Podcast today. It's the only way to find out about bonus surprise episodes and make sure you don't miss a single beat on your golden journey. Thanks again for listening, and I will talk to you in the next episode of the Goalden Girls Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the I Heart My Life show. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with 3 friends or post about it on social media using the hashtag I Heart My Life show. And don't forget to rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. It really does help us spread the movement far and wide. Remember, everything you desire is possible. Keep believing in your dreams and taking action.